This is my video update on this Monday afternoon, December the 11th. Let's talk about some news. And let's start things off with the inauguration of Javier Milei, the new president of Argentina. And what an inauguration event it was. A very interesting inauguration for Javier Milei. So Milei, he told the people of Argentina during his inauguration speech, he said that worse times are ahead. Quite an interesting statement to make as your inaugurated president. Worse times are ahead. In his inaugural speech on Sunday, Milei announced that tough austerity measures will be needed to help tame inflation and tackle debt. Austerity measures. Trips to the United States to meet with Yellen and working with the IMF and tough austerity measures. Greece has been down this road. And it was not fun. That is not a good sign when a world leader talks about austerity measures and then meets with Yellen and IMF officials. Usually this is code for a wealth transfer. More money to the rich. Whenever you hear the word austerity, it means neoliberal wealth transfer. So that was Milei. Let's see if I have another quote from him. Here we go. Today, it's the start of a new era for Argentina. Today, we close a long and sad history of decadence and decline, and we take the road of reconstruction of our country. And after he gave his speech, Milei committed Argentina to the Paris Climate Agreement. Not a joke. Not a joke. So he tells people in Argentina, worse times are coming. We are going to have austerity. I am your new libertarian, Argentina first president. And by the way, Argentina is going to commit to the Paris Climate Agreement. Interesting type of libertarianism from Milei, huh? I'm going to commit to the green gods, to the neoliberal green gods. the globalist neoliberal green gods. So that's true. That is true. The Telegraph is reporting this. Javier Milei about turns as he commits to Paris Climate Agreement. About turns. I'm sensing a Maloney 2.0 in the making here. But Milei, he invited some very interesting people to the inaugural address, to the ceremony. Well, he invited one very interesting person, and that was Elensky, the president of Ukraine. And Elensky, he showed up in Argentina, decked out in his green sweatshirt, green-black sweatshirt and camouflage cargo military pants. Elensky, man, it's time to wear a suit, bro. We get it. We get it. You had your costume, you had your outfit, you were playing the part that was asked of you, and we understand. We understand, man. But it's time. It's time to suit up, Volodymyr. It is time to suit up. And so Elensky, he met with Milei, and they embraced. They hugged each other. Milei, you're not off to a good start, bro. I warned you. Don't travel to Kiev, and don't invite Elensky to Argentina, man. You're inviting the curse, the Elensky curse, right to your home. But he invited Elensky. Elensky showed up. Elensky hugged him, and now Milei, he's got the Elensky curse. He has got the Elensky curse. I wonder what they said to each other as they embraced. Mr. Milei, congratulations on being president. Maybe now a good time to give me some money. And Javier Milei probably looked at Elensky and he said, look, man, I can give you, I don't know, a billion pesos. And Elensky probably looked at who was with Elensky, Podolyak. He probably looked at Podolyak and he said, wow, a billion pesos. This is fantastic. Thank you very much, Mr. President. And Podolyak then probably whispered to Elensky, he said, Volodymyr, a billion pesos is like $2.5 million. Elensky's like, what? What is this $2.5 million? What are you talking about? I don't like this Milei guy. I will give him my curse. But that wasn't the meeting that really caught everyone's attention. The meeting that caught everyone's attention was the meeting, if you can call it that, between Elensky and Orban, the leader of Hungary. So it looked like Milei's team, they put Orban and Elensky to sit in like the same section, and Orban was often in a corner. And Elensky, he approached Orban, and things looked pretty tense. It looked like it was a pretty tense exchange. No doubt, Elensky asked Orban, why are you trying to block Ukraine from entering the EU? And I'm sure Orban told Elensky, because you guys are losing and losing really bad. And why would we give money to a losing cause? And I'm sure that Elensky told Orban, but this is my money. Why you block my money? You know, that's what he told Orban. I have to be honest. I saw the video, and my opinion, watching Orban try to explain reality to Elensky, it looked like Elensky was a little high. It looked like he was, not exactly with Orban as Orban was trying to explain things to Elensky. So Elensky, he did make a statement when the inauguration concluded, and he said that him and Orban had a frank discussion about our European affairs. And then Elensky announced that he would be traveling to the United States, to the White House, to meet with Joe Bidenopoulos, Greece's favorite son. He is en route today to the nation's capital, the capital of the United States. And tomorrow, Tuesday, he will be meeting with Biden. Not only Biden, Elensky, he is set to have a meeting with various senators. He's going to address some senators, and then he is going to meet with the Speaker of the House, Johnson. And all of this is being arranged in order to convince these holdouts to allocate, to approve the 106 billion package, which includes 61 billion to Project Ukraine. So Biden, he's calling in the big guns to DC in order to get that 61 billion to Project Ukraine. The Guardian writes, Zelensky to visit Washington in bid to break Senate deadlock on Ukraine aid. Ukrainian leader invited by Joe Biden, and U.S. president pressures Republican senators to back aid bill. So you know what I think is going on here? Here's my thinking. I bet you the U.S., they told Milei, invite Elensky to Argentina. Milei does as the U.S. tells him to do. He invites Elensky. The inauguration was basically a cover. Perhaps the U.S. also told Milei to seat Elensky and Orban close to each other so Elensky can put some pressure on Orban. Orban's not gonna fall for any of this, but anyway, I bet you they told Milei to seat them all together. And the real reason for this whole Elensky trip to Argentina is really about getting Elensky to DC. I think Argentina was, I don't want to say the cover, but it's the sideshow. The real reason that Biden wants Elensky in the United States is to get in. The reason he wanted him in Argentina is so that he can eventually get him to the United States, to not make it look like the Biden White House was calling Elensky from Kiev like a straight shot to DC. That would look pretty weak, pretty desperate. So they created this whole Argentina inauguration thing, and they got Milei to play along, and Milei did play along. And Biden, Biden is he's got one more week, pretty much one more week to get that money to Project Ukraine, and then he is going to have to wait until January. So he is making a very big push, a very big effort to get that money approved. And Elensky is not the right guy to do that. The Biden White House, okay, here we go. The Biden White House, I think there's two things going on here. Either the Biden White House actually believes that Elensky is charming, and that when they get Elensky in front of people or in front of audiences, that he actually charms them, or Elensky, or they're bringing Elensky to the United States because the Biden White House actually wants to torpedo the funding to Ukraine, but they want to make it look like they're making a real big effort to get the funding approved, but they really want to sabotage the funding so that they can then blame it on the Republicans. That may be a bit too complicated, but it's one of two things. It's one of two things, because Elensky, he's a disaster. Whenever he goes around the world and speaks to people and meets with people, it's just a complete disaster. Everyone walks away. After meeting Elensky, everyone walks away just hating the guy. Unless you're an EU leader, unless you're Duda, Macron, or Trudeau, or Boris Johnson. Well, then, you want to hug. You want to hug Elensky. Oh, Elensky, come to me. Let me smell your cologne, your big, strong arms, your soft, supple skin. Everyone else, they meet Elensky and they're like, this guy's a clown. Everybody else, Modi, you name it. Whenever Elensky meets a world leader, like a normal world leader, they walk away and they're like, this guy's a clown. So I don't know, if the Biden White House actually thinks that Elensky's gonna go to DC and charm the Republicans, maybe, maybe he will charm the Republicans, maybe, but I don't know. Elensky's not the right person you send out on a charm offensive, but the Biden White House actually believes that getting Elensky to DC and addressing some senators and speaking to Johnson, that will be the trick that will release the $61 billion. That'll do the job and get the $61 billion to Project Ukraine. Perhaps. Or it's the Biden White House deliberately trying to sabotage the $61 billion and making it look like they're trying to secure the money, but what they're really trying to do is sabotage it. And so they said, bring Elensky to DC, let him speak to some senators, let him speak to Johnson. They're going to end up hating the guy. They're going to harden their stance with regards to the $61 billion in aid. And it's going to look like we tried, but the money's not going to get approved. And as Project Ukraine collapses, we can blame it all on the Republicans. That's a bit of a very complicated conspiracy theory, but who knows? Who knows? It is a way for the Biden White House to get an exit and to avoid an Afghanistan collapse being blamed on the Biden White House, and they can use it to blame the Republican Party. You see, the Republican Party, they did not approve the $61 billion to Elensky, and that's why Ukraine collapsed. You know, you guys deal with it, EU. It's time for the Europeans to deal with it. Either way, we have a bunch of rhino Republicans, neocon Republicans. They're making the rounds on mainstream media, and they're making the case for the $61 billion to be approved to Elensky ahead of his trip to D.C. Senator Chris Murphy, he said that this money has to be approved, or else Putin wins. If the money's not approved, then the Putin wins in Ukraine, and if the Putin wins in Ukraine, well, then China and you know the rest. The domino theory: Putin takes over Europe, China takes over Asia, and that's what's going to happen if the United States allows the Putin to win. And also Mitt Romney, he was on mainstream media. He said the same thing. It's strongly in America's interest to make sure that Ukraine puts up a great fight. Notice Romney doesn't say Ukraine win. He says Ukraine puts up a great fight. In other words, it's in America's interest for Ukraine to fight Russia to the last Ukrainian. Romney said we must provide Ukraine with the weapons it needs to defend itself. Anything other than that would be a huge dereliction of our responsibility to our allies and global democracy. That's right. The global democracy. The democracy known as Ukraine. But there are other Republicans, America First Republicans, who are coming out and saying no more money to Ukraine. They're being very vocal about it. No more money to Project Ukraine. Enough is enough. We've already given them 200 billion, 300 billion, 500 billion. What's another 61 billion going to do? And that is 100% correct. If 100 billion did not help Ukraine during the great super duper counteroffensive that offends me and offends you and offends everybody right now driving home on this Monday, if 100 billion did not work out, then what is 61 billion going to do? And 10% for the big guy. We can't forget 10% for the big guy. Marjorie Taylor Greene, she posted on Twitter X, America is nearly 34 trillion in debt because of the stupidity and horrific irresponsibility of America's leaders. Our border is under siege, invasion, and under control of the Mexican cartels. We cannot fund the Ukraine war, a U.S. proxy war with Russia. America first. And Matt Gaetz, he posted, America has sent enough money to Ukraine. We should tell Elensky to seek peace. And J.D. Vance, he was on CNN with Jake Tapper. And J.D. Vance from Ohio, he said, what is 61 billion going to accomplish that 100 billion has not? Vance asked, adding that everybody with a brain in their head knows that the conflict will end in negotiations. The idea that Ukraine was going to throw Russia back to 1991 borders is preposterous. Nobody actually believes it. Yep. I disagree with one part of Vance's statement. Everyone knows that the conflict will end in negotiations. That's what Vance said. Well, okay, in negotiations, perhaps, but it's going to be Russia dictating terms if it actually gets to the stage of negotiations. I think more than likely it's going to be a military solution and some sort of a collapse or a change in leadership in Ukraine. And we'll see if there actually are any talks that take place. If there are any negotiations, well, it's going to be Russia dictating all the terms. And we don't even know who the people on the other side of the table will be speaking to the Russians. It definitely will not be Elensky and his team of scriptwriters, actors, and producers. Perhaps it'll be Klitschko, maybe it'll be Zaluzhny. Who knows? Levan had an interesting report on his channel, and he said that Russian intel is saying that the EU is thinking about Elensky replacements, and those replacements include Klitschko, Zaluzhny, and or Budanov. So that's interesting. Of course, this is Russian intel, so who knows? This could be some sort of psyop from Russian intel, but it could be reliable information. I think it's reliable information. I bet you the Europeans, the EU, they're probably kicking around some names to replace Elensky. I wonder if Biden is going to tell Elensky to negotiate. Nah, the Biden White House, they're not going to tell Elensky to negotiate, are they? Or if they're going to tell Elensky to step down and open up the path for Zaluzhny or Klitschko, though Klitschko is aligned with Zaluzhny, and Klitschko, he's not too bright up there. Great fighter, great boxer, but not too bright. Budanov cannot be president of Ukraine because he's a nutcase. He's a nutcase. He's a war criminal. He's assassinated many Russian civilians, some inside of Russia, and so he's a no-go. But he would be the choice for the neocons, Budanov, and the CIA. He would be the choice for the CIA and the neocons. Arestovich, perhaps Arestovich. He would be an outsider. We'll see. We will see tomorrow, most likely Wednesday, if we get some information on this meeting between Biden and Elensky. What was told? What was the outcome of this meeting? I'm sure Biden will come out and say as long as it takes. I'm sure that's going to be what Biden says. But Ukraine talks happening in the United States. And this week, I believe this week, we have the EU meeting to approve accession talks with Ukraine, but also Moldova and Georgia and Bosnia. But the big one is Ukraine. And it is Orban, it is Hungary, that is putting up the resistance towards EU accession talks with Ukraine. There is news that Ukraine's foreign minister Kaluba, he is going to be meeting with Peter Szijjártó, the foreign minister of Hungary. So that meeting's going to take place ahead of the EU accession talks, ahead of the EU vote for the opening of accession talks. And the EU is scrambling to figure out a way to get Orban and Hungary to approve Ukraine's accession talks and eventual entry into the European Union. So that is going to take place this week. And The Guardian is reporting that as Elensky is going to be meeting with Biden tomorrow, today, now get this, today, according to The Guardian, various allies of Orban, they are meeting with senators in the United States to try and convince them, or to convince them, to not vote in favor of the $61 billion for Project Ukraine. Isn't that interesting? According to The Guardian, Republicans to meet allies of Hungary's Viktor Orban on ending Ukraine aid. Hungarian appearance at two-day event, part of Orban's transatlantic attempt to bolster Russia's war. A diplomatic source close to the Hungarian embassy said Orban is confident that the Ukraine aid will not pass in Congress. That is why he is trying to block assistance from the EU as well. So Orban is confident that the aid will not pass in Congress, and he's got some allies in the United States that are going to be lobbying with various members of Congress to make sure that they do not approve the 61 billion, because according to this article, Orban, he's dug in and he's not going to approve the accession talks for Ukraine into the EU, and he believes that the money is a waste. This war has to wind down, and Elensky, or whatever government is in Ukraine, they have to be forced to the negotiating table, and the best way to get them to the negotiating table and to wind down this war is to stop the money. And so that's going to be the case that Orban makes, or these allies of Orban make in the United States. This is all part of like a 2-day event that's going to be taking place. I forgot the think tank that's going to be hosting this event, but various U.S. Government officials and members of Congress are going to be at this event, and that is where these allies of Orban are going to be lobbying them to not approve the 61 billion for Project Ukraine. For the EU, this is their last card that they can play with Project Ukraine. They really need Van der Crazy, Borrell. They really need this approval, these accession talks approvals, these accession talk approval for Ukraine, because you know that Van der Crazy, she's got the script already prepared. It's all written for her, and she wants to get out in front of the podium, in front of the people, and she wants to deliver that speech. She wants to tell everybody that today we have approved European Union accession talks with Ukraine. Ukraine's future is with Europe. Ukraine's path to victory is with Europe. The evil Putin has not won and will not win. A united Europe is a Europe with Elensky. That's the speech that she wants to give. That is the speech that she wants to give. And with that approval, with the accession talks, with that speech, Van der Crazy and Borrell, they believe that they will be able to unlock the 50 or 60 billion more in funding that they will give to Elensky. And actually, Elensky called up Van der Crazy yesterday. Right before he heads off to the United States, he actually had a phone call with Van der Crazy, and we don't really know the details of what they said, but it's all about keeping Project Ukraine afloat, because the Europeans, they are petrified that at the fact that the United States may actually ditch them, and they're going to be left holding the bag, the sinking ship that is Project Ukraine. And that's going to be an absolute catastrophe for the European Union if they have to fund and support Project Ukraine by themselves, which they can't do. Without the United States, the EU, they can only support Ukraine for only a few months, and then the whole thing crashes down. So on the front lines in Ukraine, we have the Russians raising the Russian flag on the western outskirts of Marinka. That has been confirmed. Marinka has been a city that has seen a lot of fighting over the last year, intense fighting over the last year, and it now looks like Russia has finally gotten closer to capturing this important town city in, I believe, in the Donetsk area. And And Avdiivka, well, the fighting is intense in Avdiivka as well, but not much movement. The Russians are making small, incremental advances, but the fighting there is also very intense. The Elensky regime, they continue to send whatever reserves they have to Avdiivka. The order is from Elensky to hold Avdiivka at all costs. Hold the city at all costs. You see the snails? Look at that snail. So the fighting there is very, very intense, but this is an absolutely critical, important city for Elensky. I've said it in many videos in the past. If Avdiivka falls to the Russians, well, I think that's the beginning of the collapse of the Elensky regime. They're not going to be able to recover from the fall of Avdiivka. But Elensky, he's putting everything he has into holding on to Avdiivka. Well, he has to hold on to Avdiivka because, you got the coke plant there. We have to hold on to the coke plant, Podolyak. We cannot lose the coke plant. Italian media, La Indentita, they have a cover with the title, Putin back. Putin is back, according to Italian media. Yeah, Putin is definitely back. Did he ever leave? Nope. He was always in control. He was always in control of this. He had a meeting on Friday with various servicemen. It was like an event to honor servicemen. And Putin, he said some interesting things. He basically said that Ukraine's leadership went totally crazy. And when they started to go after Russians, like Russian speakers, the Russian culture, Russian history, he's like, that was the straw that broke the camel's back. That's when we said, enough. It's time to start the special military operation. Ukraine's leaders have gone totally crazy. Putin questioned the sanity of Kiev's political elites during an event at the Kremlin. We would have never done anything like the special military operation if they had not started to destroy Russia in our historical territories, expel people from there, declared Russians a non-indigenous ethnic group in Ukraine. Have they gone completely crazy? Are they completely, how can I put it more bluntly, nuts? This is what Putin said to the medal recipients. So an interesting statement from the Putin. And I'm trying to think if I have another story before I talk a little bit about the war in Israel and in Gaza. Something with Arestovich. One sec. Here we go. Yes, Arestovich. He said that it's time for Elensky to negotiate. High time for Kiev to negotiate. Arestovich told iNews that the Ukrainian president has become a hostage to his own propaganda due to his propensity to play the hero in parliaments around the world. The former presidential advisor and spokesman who has fallen out of favor with Kiev said Elensky currently thinks not about the national interests, but about his own position. So he's basically saying it's time to negotiate. That's coming from Arestovich. So the war in Israel, we have an update from The Economist. They put out an article with the title, Israel has just a few weeks left to destroy Hamas. Pressure from America to end the offensive is mounting. This is coming from the neocon Economist. Basically, this article is saying what we have been reporting on this channel and on the Duran, which is that 2, 3, 4 weeks. That's all the time that Israel has to declare some sort of end or or victory or whatever they need to do with this war, because after 2-3 weeks, the U.S. is going to have to vote in favor of a UN resolution, or the UN is just going to bypass the United States and they're going to enforce some sort of ceasefire or peacekeepers in the area. That's what I think is going to happen. But according to The Economist, the Biden White House is putting a lot of pressure on Netanyahu to wrap this thing up. You've got about a month to wrap this thing up. That is what the neocon economist is reporting. And let's do a clown world, and we can wrap this video up. So this is not even a clown world. This is just some info. Tucker Carlson is going to be launching a streaming service. That was announced yesterday. So that's pretty cool. So Tucker Carlson, amazing interviews lately. Alex Jones, Gonzalo Lira Sr., and all kinds of incredible interviews. And now he's going to be launching a streaming service, which he says will have all kinds of additional content and interviews and news stories. And I think it's going to be very successful. So that's the news there. And a clown world from I think this is from the Telegraph, actually. The story that I reported on yesterday from the author, what's this guy's name? Daniel Hannan. So yesterday I talked about this article that he put out with the title, Putin's Russia is closing in on a devastating victory. Europe's foundations are trembling. That was an article he put out just the other day. But a few months ago, on the 15th of July, 2023 to be precise, the same author put out an article with the title, Take Away Russia's Nuclear Weapons, for Putin is finished and his country may soon collapse. What a difference 3-4 months makes, huh? What a difference a few months makes. So the same author with the same publication yesterday was whining and complaining and in a panic about Putin's victory, while in July he was saying that Putin has collapsed. The Putin is finito, according to this author. And finally, we have, two more. We'll do 2 more clown worlds. We have the story that UK Tories would like Boris Johnson to be the Prime Minister. Boris Johnson back as Prime Minister of the UK. Basically, there are some Tory party members who are saying that Sunak is useless. He's a failure. It's time to bring back Bojo the clown. Boy, that's sad, man. That is sad when you have to go back to Boris Johnson. That's really, really sad. And we have this story that Ukraine is threatening a boycott of the Paris 2024 Olympics because the Olympic Committee, they have ruled that Russian and I believe Belarusian athletes will be allowed to participate in the Olympics as neutral athletes. And now Ukraine is saying that they're going to boycott the Olympics because they're going to be allowing Russian and Belarusian athletes to compete. And you know my thinking on this. I think I've said this many times in the past when it comes to boycotting these events like the Olympics. Go ahead, boycott. Boycott. That's what I would tell Ukraine. Do whatever you want. You don't want to show up to the Olympics? Don't show up. You're not going to really be missed, to be quite honest. Which country is more important to have at the Olympic Games? Which country is going to have the the better athletes, the athletes that will better compete with China and the United States. It's going to be the Russian athletes. So better to have Russia at the Olympics than Ukraine. No offense to the Ukraine athletes, but you know, if you have to make a choice, you go with Russia, man. And you get Belarus on top of it. So yeah, you want to boycott, whatever. They won't. They won't boycott. If the Olympic Committee goes to the Ukraine Olympic Committee and they say, you know, you want to boycott the games, go ahead, you watch. Ukraine will not boycott. They'll show up. They'll whine and they'll complain and they'll protest, but they'll show up. So anyway, that's the clown world. That's the video. theduran.locals.com. We are on Rumble, ODYSEE, BitChute, Telegram, Rockfin, and Twitter X, and go to the Duran shop. 20% off. Use the code TheDuran20. I think I've got a Duran sweatshirt and my Elensky green special edition. Take care.